It's the Reform or Die podcast, where nothing is off limits and everything must be reformed.
All right, welcome back. It's the Reform or Die podcast. Jacob, how are you? How's your week?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kyle?
Doing good. Barry, you?
Doing fabulous.
All right,
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, we got the crew here. No Thatcher today, but so we're missing him. He's here in spirit and in truth, sort of, right? Or is that blasphemous? I don't know if you can say that.
He's not here in truth.
He's here as a lie. It's just a lie.
You can just leave that part off.
We miss you, Thatcher. We miss you. So interesting week. So this week at our church, we had a conference, which unfortunately Thatcher's not here as my other representative who went to the conference, but we had what they called Rom-Con. I had to pronounce that very strongly, Rom-Con. And at first I thought it meant romantic con, like a con job or like I don't know what that word means exactly. Barry knows. He's a wordsmith. Yeah, thank you, Barry. Thank you. Barry's my interpreter. I keep him around just to interpret words for me. But we had the Rom-Con, romantic conference. I suppose it meant conference.
Could have. Or did they trick you?
Or maybe they really, yeah,
did
right.
Maybe they you into a relationship?
Maybe they did trick me. Jacob's like, you guys are morons. But yeah, so that was interesting. I sort of processed a little bit of it with Thatcher, but it's always dangerous when you're talking about love on a podcast. But I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I was maybe my initial reactions were a little biased in a direction, but I thought to myself, like, they have a lot of people at these conferences, right? I think they said there's like 400 or 500 single 20s and 30s people at the church.
That were at the conference?
No, just at our church. Something like that. Or maybe it was 300 to 500, somewhere in that range. But it's a big number, right? And to me, it's just interesting that these things even have to happen or do happen now as to begin with, right? Like this feels like a new thing, a new phenomenon that you're having singles conferences to some degree. They asked for write-in questions, and I said, why is dating broken? But I don't think they answered that one. But I wasn't there on Friday night, so.
Oh, man.
I know. Not jaded at all.
They should do a speed dating.
What's that?
They could have done a speed dating night.
Oh. Well, they did have a game night, but it wasn't speed dating. But I just wasn't feeling 100%, so I couldn't go to it. But maybe I missed my chance to meet the love of my life there.
You probably
did. She was there waiting for you.
I should have sucked it up and been like, I'm not sick, I'm fine. Show up to it.
Saturday night?
Yeah, it was Saturday night, yeah.
Wow.
I know. Huge.
Because you had something better to do, obviously.
You really blew it, Jacob. That was
missed
the
my
love
chance,
of his life
bro.
was there, and now he's
God was up in heaven
going.
going, this is his one shot.
Relentless prayer, unceasing, and then he just throws it away.
God had the lifeboat there and you didn't grab it.
That's man, that sounds like a theology in miniature right there. I should have gone for it.
Should have gone for it.
No, but I did want to say I thought that the team did a good job that was doing this stuff. I wasn't there on the Friday night one, but I did hear the Saturday sessions, and I really did like the panels at the end. They kind of started getting into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes, or I don't know what you want to call it, kind of the heart of it, I guess, in some ways, but kind of wanted to open it up a little bit and just be like, I kind of wish we went a little bit deeper at times. And it's hard, right? Because you got 20s and 30s, and it's, I sympathize with the people putting the conference on because it's a wide range, and you don't know where everyone's coming in at, right? What, entry into this or whatnot. But I'm always on the let's just go right to the everything that we can talk about. So one of the things I was thinking about was just, there's different things, to mention. And we kind of talked in one of our previous podcasts about women in the workforce and how that's had an effect on things, on life, society in general. And online in the last few weeks, there's just been a lot of different things circulating about either relationships or, how society has changed over time. And sometimes, I guess, is my general feedback for Christian conferences in general, not necessarily dating ones, is we'll get a really good framework biblically, but then we just don't get into the nitty gritty to applying it. I guess that's kind of how I feel sometimes. Like someone in one of the panels at the end said, we have a lot of different dating cultures now, and like no one really even shares the same outlook on how dating should go. Or should you say yes to every first date?
Should you be engaged for 2 years before marriage?
Should you be engaged for 2 years before
6
marriage?
months?
Should you have a secret wedding ceremony?
Should you have a secret wedding ceremony?
Cough, cough, Barry.
That I didn't go to.
Nobody went to that.
I'm sorry about that.
Only
well,
the
I didn't
best.
go to
There's a
either
big
one.
wedding
Yeah.
ceremony, yeah.
So those are some of the things that we didn't really kind of get into. Why is this phenomenon happening where we have so many single people at a conference and then everyone leaves and it doesn't? I'm not really sure if we made any progress towards helping people actually get married or start relationships. Maybe that's not the point necessarily, but
They all got conned.
yeah, maybe that's the con. I don't know.
I don't know. That is your trademark cynical viewpoint of it.
He knows me.
It's probably not as bad as you're saying. It's not as
Hey, did you notice how I tried to be positive there at the beginning?
yeah.
Thank you.
And good job.
I was trying.
I'm going to pretend to clap.
The golf clap happening.
But
right
no,
here.
I mean, I guess I'm not really a big fan of conferences in general.
I hear
I
that.
feel like maybe it's not the best atmosphere for that kind of discussion, but I could be wrong.
Well, do you think it's like a solution just to have like a church dating, service, like a speed date, or like what do you think,
dating
Barry?
app?
I actually think that's a great idea. I think a church local matchmaker / dating app at the local church.
He's smiling. I can't tell if he's being serious. Okay, he is being serious.
Because you put in your theological beliefs, how long things you're looking for. Maybe not even a picture. Maybe you just put something, and then we have people who match people up. Why not?
Yeah. Well, what I'm worried about is that like genuine attraction from both sides is kind of gone down. Like, what's the curve? Two bell curves, and they're just not overlapping as much anymore. So like the number of people a woman would generally be interested in that the man would also be interested in, that like meeting point it's just becoming less and less, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think there's a deep problem probably with
But I think that's the structural part of why dating is kind of broken and not working for people. And it almost sounds weird to say that out loud. It's like, well, you just must be jaded or something. But I think we have to acknowledge a problem before we can try to fix it, right? It does seem like there's a problem here.
You are jaded. However, I do think that's a good
airing my dirty laundry.
No, it's an astute observation, I would say. There is something broken there in the dating system, especially, I don't know if I'd say especially within the church, but the church is different than the rest of the world, right? As far as dating goes.
Well, like if you're at a bar at 10 p.m. in the world, people know, why you're there. You're there to find somebody. That's like the official way of meeting in the world, right?
or to go have a night with their friends, with their girlfriends.
That could be too. But there's only a couple options.
Only a few options.
You're at church on a Wednesday night. People aren't going, wow, so-and-so's really looking for somebody here. They're at church on a Wednesday night,
That's why we need Barry's speed dating and matchmaking services.
Could be. So we could play some of these clips, just different things about, just observations that I think, help us to kind of, expand the conversation about it a little bit. One of them was the Wall Street Journal put out this week. I don't have this up for the guys to look at, but said 20% of men between ages 25 and 50 account for about 70% of reported sexual partnerships with women, which I thought was
25%.
20% of men, this is a Wall Street Journal, between ages 25 and 50 account for about 70% of reported sexual partnerships with women. So it's a very small group of men, 20% of all men reporting about 70% of the partnerships with women. So it's like, I don't know if that's accurate, but it's like there's a phenomenon happening here, and if you follow any kind of conversation about dating online, it's like a very small number of men are getting a lot of the attention.
I'm going to make the case
at any place.
I'm going to make the case that that's always been a temptation and the way that people would react throughout all of history. But there's been times when cultures have been more Christianized when that didn't happen because more people were matched off and people wanted to match off. So they realized they were almost by force put to who they should be with because there was only limited options because the top ones would get matched off, they get married, they wouldn't be looked at. But now we're in a situation where that is more doable. People are single for longer. It's willing for people to date around forever. So it's more open for people not to realize where their true match is.
Yeah.
Which is probably more why that is.
Well, and some of it's just, I kind of, I've criticized Tim Keller on the podcast before. He is one of my spiritual heroes, rest in peace. He was an amazing man. And one of the things I did really like about him was he would bring social statistics to his sermons. He would actually be looking up stuff going on in the world and giving us facts about, the people in New York, what kind of, what was the congregation? What did they believe? He'd do these studies and kind of bring them and then talk about like what was really going on. And one of those studies that's been floating around recently, Andrew Colvett, the Turning Point guy, I can't remember he's basically the spokesman after Charlie's passing. He's, I think, hosting that show still. I haven't really watched it as much, but he shared a study that basically showed a recent study found that giving men a pay raise led to them having more children, while giving women a pay raise led to them having fewer children, which is really interesting, right?
Why do you think that would be in terms of the world and then in terms of the church? Because I feel like in the world, that kind of makes sense. Because the women that would be getting pay raises would be the ones that would be more inclined to work instead of want to have kids. They might just more inclined to spend their energy that way.
I guess it was just a writ large study, basically.
That
in general, when women made more, when they received a pay bump, they had fewer children. It's just interesting that the men, it was the opposite.
Sense.
Why does it make sense?
Because if you think about what a woman who puts all of her energy towards a career in the way that her pay is going to get an increase, because assuming this is a promotion, right? She's putting in more work than's required of her to get more money. She's going to be less inclined to want to take off to have the babies, one, and then also all of the extra hardness that comes with having multiple kids.
So it's kind of like the tithing episode where I was saying the more money I've made, the harder it is to tithe.
To some extent.
Which is weird. It's like counterintuitive, but like the more money you make, the more it's a sacrifice to not, to have a family because you know what you're giving up.
As a woman specifically, because what she's giving up is much more for her.
But like think about the conversation, right? At least much of what the conversation I have when it comes to married couples is they say, well, how can we make it such that the woman can have a child, have maternity leave, and then go back to work? And there's really no thought about, is this just a broken system? Yeah. Jacob's like nodding.
Yeah, I think one of the other reasons why you might see this is because men are like hardwired to want to provide for their family. And maybe if they don't have any kids and they just work, then they don't understand that drive yet. But then as soon as you have a kid, it's just like a switch flips in your brain and you're like, oh, this is like what I am meant to do. And I need to continue to basically seek to be successful in whatever I'm doing so that I can provide for my kids. That's the end goal. That's the purpose for why you're doing that. Most men. And it makes sense that a man would say, oh, I'm making more money now. This is great. I can have more kids. It makes sense. Or I can provide a better life for my kids that I already have. And that's a huge motivation. I don't know if that motivation is there, like hardwired into a woman to want to provide financially or go to work to provide for their family. Women are hardwired to care for their family, which is a beautiful thing. Men are not as caring. I'm not as caring to my daughter as a woman might be to their child, but I still have to try and recognize that I might have a deficit in that area because I am a man. But we're naturally created that way. We are meant to have unique and specific roles. So this totally makes sense to me. It's not surprising.
Well, and some of this is where I think it's hard to have a romantic conference at church, because these problems require analysis of what's going on in the world around us, not just our Bibles a little bit, right? Like, and it does though tie back into the Bible in a way. Like, if you think in the garden, man was cursed to work not that he had to work, but that his work was cursed, and the woman was cursed in her childbearing, So it's kind of showing you the proper sphere for men and the proper sphere for women right there at the beginning of the Bible. And we just have kind of lived in this world where it's like, well, men have honestly, I remember growing up hearing tons of sermons about guys in extended adolescence. Basically, it was just this constantly we were preached at as kids, like, grow up, man, grow up, be men, Yeah, man up. And it was like, well, like, if you take a step back and kind of look at it, well, the uniqueness of a man is that he's there to provide and serve. But if the women are in the workforce making essentially almost as much as the men are to begin with, like, what is a man actually bringing that a woman would want?
Now, women in the workforce, I think there's a differentiation between women whose purpose and drive is to work versus women who work because of a period of calling or a period of because they have to, and they're not married and they need to support for their kids. I think there's a differentiation between those two types of women in the workforce. Do you know what I mean? Like the women whose purpose is their career, they get fulfillment out of their career over their family, versus the women who do it because they're called to a specific area or because they have to work.
I guess what I'm saying is that no matter whether it's good or bad motivation, like, the men are being displaced from the role that they were designed to do. It's not that they don't do it, but it's that the uniqueness of it. Imagine if no women, or if 50% of the marriages, the man was the only one that, really took care of the kids or something. It's like, it would just look a little weird. And women would be like, hey, what about us? We want to take care of her. It's almost like we need to pretend and go fight, like, we want this job. And it's like, I don't know. There's just that dynamic is interesting. I did want to share a quick clip from a Twitter post. There's this person that's been kind of popping up. Helen Andrews is her name. And she kind of describes this a lot better than I can describe the phenomenon that we're kind of going through. She talks about the general feminization of the culture and what that kind of means, and how it plays out in our society. So I'll give it unless Jacob wanted to chime in before I got to this, but I'll just, I'll roll it here.
I do not have a thought between my ears.
That blank stare was not a thought. Okay, 1 second. We'll go ahead and play this.
But I think the great feminization, the channeling of so many women of childbearing age into the workforce, has had two really big, potentially civilization-ending consequences. One is the one I've been talking about, which is the feminization of institutions that makes them no longer function well. The other is declining birth rates, that if you have too many women too dedicated to their careers or engaged in other activities, and so that they're not having kids, that too can cause the end of your civilization. So it's, but I feel like there are a lot of people working on the birth rate stuff. But it's not a coincidence, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that these two problems have arisen at the same time, because they are both connected to the same phenomenon. It is a phenomenon that, like I said before, is one that no human civilization in history has ever faced. So it's not surprising that it would yield huge unprecedented problems. I think the falling birth rate is one of them.
Yeah, that's basically the clip. And she kind of talks about how the percentage of women has increased over the last 50 years in different respective fields. So like law, politics, and various places like doctors or nurses, et cetera, or, and with that increase, how that, the HR department, that kind of, wokeness is what she says, basically, that a lot of institutions, wokeness is basically just the feminization of the workforce is essentially her kind of argument. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but that's essentially it. So, all of this kind of ties into this bigger conversation of why are people getting married at like fewer and fewer or lower and lower rates? And it's just, why is love hard to find in the modern world? And I think it kind of, the uncomfortable reality is that it's got a lot more hard. We have to be willing to have a lot harder conversations as Christians and really do some more in-depth analysis. It's not that we're trying to say, I don't want women to be able to make money. Oh, that's like not what I am trying to say. I'm trying to say what is best for society and how do we encourage relationships to start and how do we encourage, and it's an uncomfortable conversation, right?
I think one is noticing the inherent differences between men and women outside of the obvious biological differences. And there's a lot of affirmative action. I mean, not denigrating the women who are out there, but there is just by nature of fact, a lot of affirmative action, why there's women succeeding in a lot of things. There's a lot of women-specific conferences, a lot of women-specific things. There's always these pushes to get women into these things, which is affirmative action, which is trying to do that to the extent that they might not be the best fit for that, or they might not even want to do that. But then also they think that they're the same as men and they're trying to do things where they might not be called to do because they're being told to do these things. I think that's probably the biggest difference is.
And celebrated, right? Like, the more that it's like, well, great. I don't want to say don't celebrate these achievements, but like the primary achievements that you want to celebrate are a woman having kids, being married, having a great life, having someone that provides for her, That's a great thing. I mean, men are not the best with little kids all the time. Like women are just so good with raising kids. And that too, yeah.
And they can carry the woman in their stomach, and there's certain things
a man can't do.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I was told chest feeding was a thing. Well, men can do it too. It's 2026, the miracles of modern science.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm sorry to just bring in that downer.
No, you got it. You nailed it.
But yeah, I would say that I don't think it's necessarily that women shouldn't work. It's just that they value the wrong things. And a lot of that value is being placed not through their natural inclinations, but through society.
Yeah.
I think, not to try and move us along. However, we do have an episode. Which number is that?
Are we on 8? 7 or 8? 8.
So maybe? I don't know which episode of Women in the Workforce was, but
that was like 3 or so.
I missed
we
that
do
episode.
have that. So if people want more of that,
we have a
kind
golden
of discussion
key to talk about.
Yeah,
this is romance. Yeah. I don't know if you heard. It's not a con. It's a conference. So
they should have started with that.
Jacob's over it.
I'm so
we've
over
got
it,
other
actually.
things to get to on the agenda today. And we may even splice this up into its own. I don't know, depending on how long it was. So
we can clip it out.
We could clip it and ship it. I don't know if that's a saying, but we just made it one.
The incriminating portion of the podcast.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. True. So we did want to mention there was some interesting news in the last week. One of the things was, and I don't know if I have this post pulled up, but apparently Benjamin Netanyahu was given a golden key, I guess, to the country. I don't know. I need to find this post. Barry, can you try to pull it up on your phone? Look for Netanyahu golden key and see what you can find.
Not to be confused with the golden medal won by the U.S. hockey team.
Yes, which was pretty epic, and we are going to get to that too. The interview with Jack Hughes. Did you guys see this?
No.
He's the dude. Okay, so guy gets a high stick to the face and has 2 of his teeth knocked out. Plays the rest of the game and gets the game-winning goal in overtime.
Nice. That's hockey right there.
Yeah, that is. Dude's like a total boss.
Given by myself and the First Lady to Prime Minister and the First Lady of Israel, and it's a key. We call it a key to the White House, and it's a key to our country and to our hearts.
That was the key.
Wow.
That's
key to the country and to our hearts. Jacob's reeling right now.
So I'm not sure how I feel about that. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Your Trump's coming along. It's good.
Yeah. I think to most people who think on the issue, and I'm not calling people who haven't come to this conclusion unintelligent, but to most people,
cough, Kyle Berry.
No. I'm not saying anything mean. Most people who think about this and kind of take it into a holistic view would realize at this point that there's a bit of an unhealthy bond or relationship between the current administration and the nation of Israel.
I would call them best friends.
I would call them best friends. Not an
unhealthy bond.
I am going to go out, and this is maybe controversial, giving a foreign nation's leader a golden key to the White House.
Doesn't look symbolic. Great. Doesn't really look great.
It's just weird.
Jacob, what about the key that I gave you to my heart the other day?
When did that happen?
The previous podcast.
I mean, okay. I think that's just different than two
What's the difference
leaders.
Between Trump and Netanyahu just giving each other keys to each other's hearts in their houses? There's no difference.
It just kind of, this is kind of just like a, man, I'm losing my words to describe.
I heard a can opening right there. It was like a.
This is, it's just kind of like the embodiment of the whole situation that I see, in which it seems like some of our politicians, senators, congresspeople, whatever, including our president, at times seem to prioritize another nation's well-being over ours.
Uh-oh, he's saying it out loud. Oh no, he said it out loud.
I don't know if that's going to get me canceled.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think might get taken off Spotify.
No,
well, Jacob
might become demonetized.
It is just a genuine critique of what I'm saying, and I am being very
transparent.
I'm trying to be transparent. I'm being honest. I'm not going to just lie about what I'm thinking. And I think a lot of people are afraid to say this, but I think a lot of people kind of have the same opinion.
I would say, yeah.
They think that the whole relationship between the Trump White House and the Israeli government is just kind of, it's maybe a little too far.
Well, Jacob, they're God's chosen people.
Well, and Jacob has not heard the Barry and Kyle last episode, which hasn't released yet, hasn't been edited yet even, but we did talk a little bit about this, but I did want to play also a clip from Glenn Beck, because I don't think people are conscious of this sort of what you're talking about is they're preferring another nation to some extent over every other nation, and maybe even over our own in certain ways. And that could be due to the theology is the idea.
And if you do hold to a theology where you view the modern day nation state of Israel as being God's chosen people that is referred to in the Old Testament and still is today, and if you have that view, I understand. I genuinely understand why there might be instances where you would put the needs of another country over ours. It makes sense. I, however, do not hold to that view. And I know a lot of people who also don't hold to that view. I also know there's a lot of people who didn't even know that there's an alternative to that view, especially that view of eschatology, the involvement of Israel in the end times, myself included. I didn't know that there were any other eschatological viewpoints until I was a grown adult. And I almost felt like it was kind of hidden.
I can't believe you're denying the Left Behind books right now.
I'm denying, yes.
How could you do? You don't understand that you're going to be a pile of clothes on the ground one day, or at least that's all that's going to be left of you here.
I don't think I will be now. I'm denying this.
Okay,
so I'm not going to I'm going to be left behind. I'm not going to be taken up into the clouds.
Okay.
So that's a shame, but
there you go. We should listen to this clip. It's Glenn Beck. It's kind of on this topic of the idea of your religion or your view of Israel kind of affecting your political stances. So we can play this real quick.
I at times have felt impressions from God, and about 4 or 5 weeks ago, it was overwhelming. I know why I was born. This is why you are here. This is why you were born. And it is to stand at these times and to stand for the truth and to stand, not to sound grandiose, but to stand as other people in history have stood, especially for the Jewish people. And it is humbling, a little bit terrifying, but a relief to finally know.
Yeah, that's about the clip there. It's just, it's like, not stand for our country? I don't know. I mean, why not America? I don't know. But it is due to the theology. That's really, and we do sympathize. Like, it is people trying to read, and I don't know, Barry, you made the point that Glenn Beck's not a Christian, I think, right?
He's a Mormon.
But, I mean, it's due to that. It's due to the theology to some extent. And it's very, I have sympathy for it because it's people trying to read their Bibles rightly. But when you watch it play out, it's like, boy, that doesn't sound very patriotic, right?
I'd go even farther than that and give him even more benefit of the doubt. In that, if all of us truly believed that there was a group of people who were trying to exterminate them and were being mistreated and being beaten up and being abused, that we would all want to stand up for that group of people. Like, if we saw people that we knew who were truly being destroyed like that he truly believes, is happening, then we would want to stand up in that sense.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
fair.
Like, I think we would all see that if we held to those same beliefs about what he truly believes, which is that Israel is people are trying to destroy Israel, tell them that they're going to die and that they're a minority group, and not just that, but you know what I mean? Like there's a different level, I think, that he's trying to take. Can you clarify?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And it is, I mean, there are numerous enemies to Israel around the Middle East that are very much against them and want them to cease to exist. And I don't think it's great if we have nations wiping out other nations. I don't think that's good. I'm kind of anti-war, generally speaking. There's some instances where I think war is acceptable and necessary, actually, like we have to do it. But yeah, I do understand and I sympathize with people who seek the protection of the Jewish people. And I have nothing against Jewish people. I simply have an issue with the Israeli government and the unhealthy relationship that our leaders have with the Israeli government, and seemingly the prioritization of that country over ours, to the point where I pay a lot in taxes.
You don't want it going to fund wars overseas?
I don't want my taxes going to fund wars overseas. One.
Crazy.
Also, I pay a lot in taxes, and my taxpayer dollars contribute to a country having free healthcare for their citizens and free college for their citizens. And
Israel?
Yeah, but it's
Free
not
abortions for their citizens.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So there's a lot of political issues there, and I think I have a real issue with almost the idea of kind of reading in modern day Israel into your theology, into your eschatology. I just think it's wrong. That's not to say that I won't, fellowship with those people. I have plenty of friends and family who I love dearly who do not agree with me on this. But I think it is good to be able to have open dialogue about it.
Yeah, I think that's the point, is we need to be able to talk about issues, like whether it's romantic, stuff like conference, getting into the nitty gritty of those issues, or whether it's, foreign policy, whatever it is, we need to be able to have some backbone as Christians and be able to disagree with each other and state why we think, we're right or wrong or whatever.
I don't think someone should feel as though they're going to be anathematized from their community, kicked out, made anathema because they hold a different viewpoint on something like this. So not that you have to agree with everybody, but just being able to be civil and like being open to discussion and actually considering things.
It's just like, there was a long time where there was very traditional hero telling stories in Hollywood. Like Thor 1 was kind of like a traditional, storytelling with like Thor is the hero. There's a damsel in distress. and that's it. It's just the classic story. And then later, Hollywood shifted to every hero's like morally gray, and they have some kind of bad things they do and some good things they do and some bad things they do. And it's like, it's almost like coming back around where it's just refreshing to just hear pure patriotism again. And I think that's kind of what we got with the hockey team. Like, they were so unapologetically pro-American. It was so beautiful and refreshing.
And that's great considering some of the other Olympic athletes.
Oh yeah.
Because some of the other ones use this as their opportunity to trash talk America, which it is
crazy.
It is good to know that there are still some proud Americans out there on the world stage recognizing that they were sent out as representatives of this country to show our superiority on what are they calling it now? Ice football? Is that what they're calling it now? They're officially renaming it to ice football.
I didn't know that.
That's what I heard. Abuse. Yeah. We're calling it ice football now. That's what it is. We own it.
People like, I'm outing myself here a little bit, but I'm old enough to remember when America was really genuinely like united when I was growing up, and there was not so much division, whether it was racial division or any, it was still a little, yeah, no, sorry. Don't tell anyone, but it really was not as crazy as it has become. Like, the country used to be generally united on almost everything. Like, it was just great. But anyway, you're going to hear Jack Hughes after winning. He scored the winning goal for the U.S. and just how refreshing this is to hear him. So here, we'll play this.
This is all about our country right now. I love the USA. I love my teammates. It's unbelievable. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong. And we had so much support from ex-players. I'm so proud to be American today.
This was such an incredible game to grind out. You're bleeding right through it just looking at you right now. Can you just talk about how difficult this gold medal was to win?
Unbelievable game by Hellebuck. He was our best player tonight by a mile. Unbelievable game. Unreal game by our team. That's just a ballsy, gutsy win. That's American hockey right there. That's a great Canadian team, but we're USA. We're so proud to be Americans. Tonight was all for the country.
What does this gold medal mean to USA Hockey?
It's everything. Like I said, the USA Hockey Brotherhood means so much. Look at these guys. We're such a team. We've been together for 2 weeks. We're such a team. The USA Hockey Brotherhood is so strong, and we're so proud to win for our country.
So proud to win for our country. It's just That's so
awesome.
Heartwarming, isn't it? And you hear that and you're like, thank God someone's going to be like talking good about the country a little bit.
Gives you chills, man. It's a really proud moment. Also,
dude has 2 of his front teeth knocked out while he's giving this interview.
Hearing him talk, missing his front teeth, you can tell, like, as soon as he starts talking, you can tell he's missing some teeth. But dude, that's impressive. I love it. It kind of gives you a little bit of hope.
It gives you hope. And it's the thing is, not only did he have his teeth knocked out, it's the first time that they've won gold, I believe, in 46 years since the Miracle on Ice story. So it's an absolutely crazy win. And I don't think that they were favored at all. And I believe that there was and one of the other amazing things about this was I think they had a teammate who got killed in a car crash, drunk driving accident kind of thing. Like, so he got hit, I think, and they brought his 2 kids out on the ice for photos at the end. So they like went up in the stands. 2 of the players got the 2 kids, brought them down on ice for the photos. It was so moving. You'll have to look it up, Barry, and fact check me. But I saw that and I just kind of teared up. I was like, that is so amazing to see like the camaraderie and just that is the country at its best when it's, it's a brotherhood like that. They're just fighting it out and sort of a little bit of a sour ending to it, but not this part. They accepted an invite to the White House to go to the State of the Union, which I believe is happening tonight. Is that right?
I think it's,
or soon.
From what I'm seeing on Twitter, it looks to me like it's happening right now.
True. But the women's hockey, who also won, declined. They're not going.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating that It's like you got,
And that's why women shouldn't be in the workforce now.
I mean,
I kid. It's a joke. Everybody calm down.
It's not like we're trying to ban it or something, but
Maybe,
I do,
maybe,
not to go back to that
maybe
topic,
eventually,
but not to go back too strongly to that topic, but how can we incentivize families and how can we incentivize people being in their, in a role that's going to make them flourish? That's the way I kind of look at it. It's like,
How can you?
yeah.
What's
And
the
that's
answer?
hard. Like, I don't know. I don't know the answers. Sometimes it's easier to know the problem than to know the answers, but
I think removing affirmative action and embracing traditional gender roles will do it.
yeah.
Just on its own, I think people will, in Christianity, obviously.
Yeah. Well, in some sense, not to go back too long to this topic, but like getting married is like the crowning achievement almost of an adult life, whereas it used to be the starting place of an adult life. You graduated from being a kid, you got married, and you started your adult adventure. Now it's kind of like it's happening at the tail end of, people's like young adulthood, essentially. So it's changed a lot, but yeah. That was USA Hockey. God bless that USA Hockey team. What else do we have here on the agenda? Apparently Trump they had another assassination attempt at Mar-a-Lago. Did you guys hear about this?
Was he there?
He was not there to my knowledge, but I think his itinerary was potentially taking him down that way. I don't want to misspeak on this, but I mean,
this is the second or third time at Mar-a-Lago, though, or second time at Mar-a-Lago.
yeah, and even Trump commented on it afterward, and he basically said, "Yeah, I don't know how long I'm going to be around for." Basically, I mean, just think about that. The dude's being gunned at.
Well, did you?
Gunned
Okay,
for.
So this one was interesting because, from what I understand, the motive was a little different.
Yeah, tell us what I could read the Secret Service.
Yeah, I don't know
thing here, or I don't know exactly what it says, but it's basically on February 22nd around 1:30 a.m., a male in his early 20s was shot by U.S. Secret Service agents and a deputy from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office following an unauthorized entry into the secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago. The individual whose identity is being withheld pending notification of next of kin was pronounced deceased. The individual was observed by the north gate of the Mar-a-Lago property carrying what appeared to be a shotgun and a fuel can. And it goes on, but.
So, and this could be totally off base, but they identified the guy and found some of his social media. And from what I saw, it seems like he was motivated by something related to the Epstein files.
Oh.
So at least from what I saw, it seems like maybe this was less of I don't like Donald Trump because I'm a left-wing extremist and I think he's Hitler, so I'm going to kill him. I'm pretty sure this guy was kind of fed up with all the stuff he's been seeing in the files, which is interesting. It's a different kind of angle.
Which is odd, right? Because, Trump, to my knowledge, it's been shown that he was one of the original people that essentially ratted Epstein out.
Yeah, but there's a lot of information online that goes against that narrative, whether it's true or not. If there's people going out there and saying Trump did this, Trump did that, and people just kind of buy into it. Also, Trump is presiding over the release of the documents, and it's been delayed heavily, and it does implicate a lot of people.
Yeah, the way that the document releases have been handled, or non-releases in a lot of cases, is really not great.
I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised at all that people are taking up arms against some of our elected officials.
Well, and this is partly why we need our elected officials to actually arrest criminals, because people are getting so bent out of shape over this idea that we can release this stuff. And, Prince Andrew, I believe it is, got arrested, and somebody in France, right? I think there's been a couple arrests overseas in relation to this, but nobody over here.
Yeah, no, this is a sign that we need to take this seriously and actually seek some justice, because I know for a fact this is not the only guy who feels that way. If that is the case, that this was his motive. And I'm honestly surprised that more of this stuff hasn't happened. As cynical as that is to say, like, this is kind of a big deal The whole Epstein thing is kind of a big deal, man. And, you know, we've started wars over less. There's been, it's just crazy. Where we've kind of gotten in the culture kind of boggles my mind how apathetic people are. And I'm not advocating for people to go out and be violent, but
we're definitely not advocating for that.
No,
not advocating.
But it's just kind of a reality that you come to expect that kind of stuff when something like this is happening, in my opinion.
Well, a good chunk of the country is also becoming more violent, just in general. I mean, they did polls on Democrat voter base that basically said, would you be opposed to violence for political enemies? And they were basically like, it was over 50% were at least amenable to that idea.
Well, why not? From their perspective.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, right, is a lot of times people on the left, they're not religious, and they view government as like kind of their stand-in religion, right?
I mean, I think to some extent they view rich people as inherently wrong. Like if you have money, the only way you have money is because you cheated and you took advantage of people. Therefore, you are inherently evil. And therefore, to some extent, you deserve what happens to you. They maybe wouldn't say deserve, but they would say it's not a tragedy. You kind of got what's coming, you know, they would say maybe karma. Why were they not upset when Charlie Kirk was murdered? Because, he was inflammatory, you know, there's... Not
only not upset, but a lot of them celebrated.
I'm talking about the ones who weren't upset because he was inflammatory. You know, that's what you get if you're going to do that. That's what these rich companies get. If these politicians get, if they're going to be inflammatory, you know, they get what's coming to them. I think that's what their mindset is. So they don't really have a rationale for not to be violent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that, there was a study that was done, and I don't really have it pulled up, but it was basically a kind of a game theory simulation where they had like an economic game that people were playing, and it was a male, female, not participants, but observers of the game. And they had electric shocks applied to people who weren't cheating. And both the men and the women observers looked at this, and their emotion, their, empathy centers lit up in their brains. And then they had someone get shocked who was genuinely cheating, and the observers knew that that was the case. And the men, their dopamine centers, essentially their pleasure centers lit up when the cheater was punished. But women, their empathy centers lit up. So it's kind of interesting when you look at women. They say a lot of women really don't like Donald Trump, right? Because he's talking about holding the laws, he's talking about enforcing our laws, and getting people who are criminals out of the country, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, well, if that study is true, again, you can go do your own research on it and see if I'm right or wrong. Maybe I'm just wrong on that, but it is interesting, right? That, people say the Republican Party's like dad and the Democrat Party's like mom, and you need both. Kind of, it's like a conversation, right? But that is interesting that to have justice, you have to be able to, punish the wicked, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deep thoughts here, really. Yeah. Truly deep thoughts.
I mean, it makes sense. I guess I don't have too much more to say on that other than I am surprised more of this hasn't happened, and I genuinely hope that it doesn't happen.
The violence?
Yeah. But some things obviously have to change. Got to have some kind of pressure relief valve. Otherwise, stuff is just going to blow up.
Well, and I think we even, maybe you could look this up for us, Jacob, but didn't you say earlier in the week that there was some left-wing, violence in Kansas City, like terrorist type stuff?
Yes.
I don't remember the story, though.
I can't remember the specific story. I'll look it up.
I hadn't heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is like hometown stuff. We should be more up on our local politics, and I'm not, if I'm being honest, which is not great. But
I mean, it makes sense also to think about how empathy. So you're saying it's more of a generally feminine idea to have empathy for wrongdoers.
Well, and you kind of want that in certain contexts. Like in the family, at least as kids, we knew we would go to mom when we wanted an advocate, and you wouldn't go to dad after you broke a rule. You go to mom and say it's unfair.
And I would assume that I mean, in one, I think that turns into like, a group of people who think they know what's best for you ultimately. Like they think that they can fix you. They think that they know what's best and they can reform you instead of actually punishing you. When in reality, it's best always to be punished for what you do wrong. If you get away with it all the time, it's worse for your humanity because you're not treated like a human anymore. You're treated like a child or a pet.
So I found it. Apparently it was a woman, it was in Kansas City, who mistakenly thought that a warehouse space was being rented out, I guess, or used by ICE. It was an ICE facility, so she set it on fire. That was her confession. But those kinds of things, yeah, it's when they hit close to home, it's a little different, I suppose.
There's a lot of, women that protest, older women in general that kind of actually go out to do these protests, like the No Kings stuff that we see out there on the streets when we're going to church, on the way to church. I haven't seen it as much lately, but I haven't really driven past those areas too much. But yeah, like you'll see a lot of, it's usually older people, I feel like, but it's also a lot of women out there.
We get protests right down the street from our church every single Saturday in the morning. They're out there every single Saturday.
Yep.
Just posted up with signs.
And I'm glad to praise our pastor, but he did call that out one of these Sundays, I don't know, 2-3 months ago, and I was very appreciative.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I even
good.
sent him an email and just say thank you.
It's great to do that because, your congregation is driving past a bunch of people holding signs, screaming and yelling. I think it's good to kind of address that and say, hey guys, here's what's going on, and we're not going to back down. We're not going to, change what we're saying.
People do need to have a greater awareness of what's going on in the world, and, immigration is one we're going to revisit again as a topic. It's a sensitive topic because a lot of Christians differ on it, and it's a lot of it's divided between men and women in general. But it is one where if you break the laws of the country, there are laws on the books. Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, not that Hillary was president, but she was an advocate for strong immigration enforcement back in the day. She even sounds more intense than Trump in a lot of her speeches back 20 years ago on the topic. So
she's more MAGA than Trump.
She was back then, basically. I mean, the establishment, it's crazy how short the attention span is. Like people don't understand, like in the last 10 years, we got the whole trans issue, and like, it just it's insane how much people have lost their minds in the last 10, 20 years. And a lot of people just don't understand, they don't understand how insane it's gotten, basically, because it's like the frog boiling thing. It's just been turned up little by little. And like, how can you not know there's two genders? It's just the most basic thing of all time.
It's specifically, if you look at, Clinton or even Obama, like the beginning of Obama's first presidency, when he was campaigning, if I remember correctly, he held the position that marriage was between a man and a woman.
You're right.
By the end of his presidential term, he was pretty much affirming transgenderism and homosexuality and all that kind of stuff.
He at least openly affirmed marriage was between a man and a woman.
Well, yeah.
I highly doubt that he truly believed that.
But that's an indication of how far the party has shifted.
Yeah. I think when either party takes power, it seems like the shift becomes faster and more radical now. Like Trump took power and now the general cultural shift is huge. Like we're having a conversation about women in the workforce. That was not a conversation people had 6 years ago.
See, I think a big part of that is actually Elon buying Twitter, because if you remember, Trump and many people were banned from Twitter after January 6th. I was actually on Parler back then. Remember Parler? That existed as a social media option counter. I
tried that, but
and then they shut it down. They killed it off.
It did kind of suck.
It got good it got better at the end. It was like a mix of Facebook and Twitter, and it was like a place you could go to get people's honest, genuine thoughts without it being really that censored. And they crushed it. First Google and Apple took them off their Play Store and Apple Store, if I remember right. And I believe Amazon W3 servers essentially just pulled the plug at a certain point, and they just took out their competition.
I would say, in retrospect, Elon buying Twitter is probably it's probably one of the more consequential events in American history.
It's huge.
Like it is actually a big deal because some would say that it affected presidential elections. It has affected a lot of stuff with, COVID-19. It's affected a ton of stuff.
And most people, people just don't realize like that, the Google search algorithms are bent to left-wing sites and sources and things like that. You just don't even think about it because Google's like basically all most people use. You can go to other sites and get decent, it's not great results, but you'll get stuff that is at least sometimes not totally left-wing or left-leaning. Yeah. And you just don't notice how it's happened. Like there were sitting senators or congressmen that were listed on Wikipedia as like, alt-right people or what. They were just labeling them as, white supremacists or whatever it is. And it's like it's just the left has gone so far left that anyone who's like even remotely center looks far right to them,
Yeah.
And I do think it's important for us as Christians. A part of the reason why we talk about these things is it's important for Christians to speak about stuff happening in the culture and in the world because we're trying to apply what we see as biblical principles. And we've gone through some of those tonight, but what good is a perfect, amazing, filter if you don't run dirty water through the filter, right? Like we have the Bible, we have this amazing filter that's going to strain out all this crap. Oh, I said a bad word. There it is.
That's our explicit rating.
There's our explicit rating right there. But
I'm going to drop a couple F-bombs here in a minute. So.
Yeah, right. We're probably going to review some clip that'll drop one eventually. But yeah, like the filter is there and we're supposed to use it. And we have to actually get into some of these details to talk about this stuff, right? Like it's kind of a shame. Like I saw something this week that was like, there's like over 90 million evangelicals in the United States, something like that. And 15 million of them aren't registered to vote of voting age. And it's like another 45 million total, like just don't vote in any particular election. So it's like a little over half do vote.
I think our voting system is, why are we letting 18 to 21 year olds vote? Why don't we, that was in the 80s.
Part of that's because nobody grows up as fast as they're supposed to because we leave people in education, till they're like halfway through their adult life, right? Like it's just the growing up process takes so long. And then people aren't getting married because women have all this debt and they want to go work off some of the debt for a little bit.
I very much disagree with pure democratic voting system in the voting system that we have currently. I don't even think that
we've danced around it, but I think
it's utterly broken.
The thing was, in the past, voting was tied to rights were tied to responsibilities. So in the past, you had to be someone who would serve your country and be willing to go die for your country. That is, men were drafted, right? That was the trade-off, was if you were able to go and have to be called on to die for your country, you had the right to vote. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's how one of the ways it used to be.
Heinlein, science fiction guy, he talked about like his view was like you had to serve X amount of years before you could vote. Anyone could serve, men or women could serve, but you had to serve X amount of years in the military before you could vote. Yeah.
I saw this clip, I think it was on Instagram, and it was kind of related to this. It was about women being able to vote. And it was a guy kind of, TPUSA style campus interview. And a girl comes up to the microphone and she's like, why do you think women should not be allowed to vote in this country? He's like, I'll give you one reason. And he said, have you ever heard of selective service? And she's just like, no. And he's like, there you go. You don't even have to think about what selective service is, but every single man in this country knows that when they turn 18, they could, at a moment's notice, be called up to go fight and die for their country, and they can't do a thing about it. That is what they sign up for just because they're born in this country as a man. And
yeah, it's tacit. You don't have any say in it, really.
A lot of men, I'm not going to say all of them or most, a lot of men are happy to do that. They might not really want to, but they would do it if they have to, if it means fighting for their country and their fellow man. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to make the argument that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. I'll do that some other time.
I'm going to make a quick argument on that real quick. Based on the fundamental nature and the fundamental differences of men and women. One, I believe that voting to some extent is a duty. It's a right in the sense that we should be voting and who gets, we're vesting our vote in the office to represent us. But it's also a moral duty that we need to take the responsibility of to vote and take the time to do that and to make those hard decisions like Kyle was talking about, like making the decisions that might be difficult to make, like the disciplinarian decisions. And I think that leadership and these kind of decisions are better for men biblically and who men are generally in terms of providing and in terms of that ability to make those difficult decisions. And you think about how emotionally charged our current politics are. It's emotional charge. There's no substance behind anything. There's nothing, nobody stands for anything. They need to be, there's nothing. There's no intellectual rigor behind either side, really. There's no hard morals. There's no stance in either side, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to expound on that, men generally, they've done studies and they found men are more interested by and large in macro trends. Women are interested in micro things. So it's like, conversations, people, where you went today, those kinds of things. Women are more interested in, celebrity gossip, that kind of stuff. Women are more interested on the whole than men. Men are more interested on the whole in trends in society. It's just the way the brains are built a little bit differently, right? And politics kind of deals with, to some extent, trends in society. You need to be able to be aware of these things. So, and that combined with the argument I was making earlier that men in general are more willing to punish evildoers, and it actually is rewarding to a man to punish an evildoer. Like there's some satisfaction men can get out of that. That I'm not saying not every woman gets zero satisfaction out of the punishing of evildoers. I'm not trying to say that. There are plenty of great female judges, but there are a lot that really aren't that great. And it's partly due to the way that we're wired, right? Men were wired to be in the workforce, wired to be interested in these things. I don't think every man comes across as sympathetic to, every child, right? Every father isn't always coming across as empathetic as the mom. Kids often run to mom first, right? To get something if they're upset or things are going wrong. So that's kind of building off the nature argument that we're different. We're complementary, but we're different. And I'm not trying to put some ban on everything. I'm just trying to say there are differences here. And how do we help people flourish?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, as Christians, we believe men should be pastors. We believe men are the head of households. We certainly do believe that there are limits that men should have. And I think the Bible is clear on a lot of those things. A lot of them, male elders, male leaders in the church. I think that's a clear thing. And if we believe that, then we should believe the same thing extends to our country, where we should believe in male leadership in those areas. And why? Because we believe that the Lord gave us different qualities than women. And it's also a burden as leadership, because as a leader, you take responsibility for everyone. You take responsibility for her. As a man, you're responsible for your wife in front of the Lord. And then there's a burden behind voting, and that we should be taking that burden off of them to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not, I mean,
I personally think the man should get a vote, and then if he has a wife, he should get 2 votes, and he should get an extra vote for every child he has.
That's honestly, that's not a bad idea. I mean, heads of household voting if you pay X amount of income tax, I don't think that it's a pure democracy. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, I think we've tried out. Well, we have a constitutional republic, but
getting less and less.
Not really. Yeah, we've tried out democracy, and I feel like, and this isn't me just saying like, oh, we need some kind of monarchy or anything.
A true representative republic.
Well, no, we don't even live in a representative republic, really.
No,
our representatives don't really answer to the people. They're answering to special interests at this point.
They answer to the mob, but the mob is controlled by the least common denominator nowadays.
It's controlled by money. I mean, that's why you don't see any Jeffrey Epstein protests on the street, but you see no Kings rallies, right? I mean, like, it's money that's sending these people out.
What we truly need is leaders who are going to be under subjection to God ultimately and to Christ, who have moral boundaries, who are going to maybe even answer to a church and have these moral things where you go into that place of position, you actually put yourself under responsibility. I have never seen Trump take responsibility for any mistakes that he's made, or any leader in the last
Trump
100
doesn't
years.
apologize very often.
No, but and that's understandable to some extent while you're in term, but you still need to put yourself under your servant, your public servant. You have to take that responsibility, not just giving people whatever they want. I mean, what's not what your country, I mean, that to an extreme extent, but I wouldn't be, the system's off in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree on that.
I think we could have read this earlier too, talking a little bit about differences between men and women, and we mentioned the conference earlier on romance and dating. I guess it was more romance than dating, but this is 1 Timothy 2, 8 through 15. So it says, I desire then that in every place the men should pray, lifting holy hands without anger or quarreling. Likewise also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness with good works. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. So I don't know, to be fair, if they read this Friday night. I wasn't there for that session, but this is a very potent passage, and
that might make a lot of people mad, Kyle.
This passage is not one people like to talk about.
To be fair, I do think that it's often abused to some extent by
in
men
what way?
who would like to. I mean, there's a spectrum of leadership where you can be a tyrant and you can be a leader who exercises godly leadership. I think people can use that to exercise tyranny over their wife.
I think most men who are genuinely exercising tyranny over their wives are probably not. They probably don't have a firm foundation I'd
agree with you.
In Christ, and therefore I don't think they would necessarily be using this.
Would you say the same thing about a wife who exercises tyranny over her husband? Because that happens often as
yes. Well. Oh, I'm aware.
Or would you say that they're grounded in Scripture? I mean, there's a lot of godly wives out there who are exercising tyranny over their husbands.
Theologically, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they kind of lead.
They lead, they make the decisions and whatnot.
I think a lot of people will argue against these kinds of verses and say that they are just used to, exercise tyranny over.
I'm saying there can. I'm saying that's why people don't like them.
Yeah, yeah.
Not that they're not true.
It is why they don't like them, but it's exactly why they need to be read.
Yeah.
And interpreted in a correct fashion.
And interpreted correctly, because this does say that Adam was not deceived, which is very interesting. Adam failed in a different way. It's not because he was deceived. Adam caved because he didn't want to be without Eve, I think.
I think he failed because he was the leader. To some extent, he's responsible for your wife. Like it talks about in Revelation there or somewhere, it talked about you're presented with, you're to present your wife to some extent and you're judged based on her. Not that, and I don't even know how that means. It's not like, if your wife's a sinful person that you're responsible completely for her sin, but there's some level of that where our leadership involves that.
And there's like two different ways a person can read some of this and say, and have two different reactions, I guess. You could read this and say, like the part where it says, let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. A lot of women don't like the word submission or submissiveness. They just don't like it. They have a negative reaction to it. But when you start to understand, like, men really value women when they are deferential or when they're quiet. They have a quiet spirit. It's gentle, quiet spirit. Like when you understand that's something men value, I think as a woman, you could have a different reaction and say, this is like a cheat code, basically. As a woman, you can understand how to be really attractive to a potential mate.
It's like
so fast.
It's like
right
being
here.
6'3" as a man.
Right. Exactly. It's like being the guy with the gold chain and, making, $1 million a year or whatever.
Six figures, 6'3".
Right.
But what does
Six-pack.
that mean? I don't think any of us would say we want a wife who has no conviction or does whatever the guy tells her to do at all times. Like, let's say you had a wife and you were debating something And she just always said, whatever you want, and she had no convictions about anything. That's not really what you'd want.
No, I mean, you want a conversation. Yeah. Sure.
I think what you'd want is someone who'd be willing to listen to you, but also when you make the decision, she wouldn't fight against you continually. Like she would submit to your decision ultimately, while still being convicted and strong in her convictions, would still ultimately defer to your leadership at the end.
But I think this argument here is rooted in the nature of the man and the woman. This is saying, let women do this, let men do this. And it roots it in, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. So there's an order to creation, right?
Yeah. That's a good point.
So these are not like transient, we could toss them like head coverings. People will say this is like head coverings, where we don't ask women to read head coverings anymore. Sorry, Barry clicked something over there. We don't ask women to wear head coverings in church anymore. And it's like, well, this is the same thing. That's why we can have female pastors. Well, that's different, because the head covering stuff was a cultural thing. This is not rooted in a cultural argument. This is rooted in the nature of men and women and the created order that God instituted. That's why we say this standard has not changed, whereas we do allow for a change in standard of women not necessarily having to cover their head in church. That was a cultural thing at the time that they were talking about. So just food for thought. But, I don't know if they got into this on Friday at the conference, but these are the controversial topics, man. These are the ones where the rubber meets the road. So,
every single marriage book that I read before getting married talked about Ephesians 5, but none of them truly dug into the words behind submission. And
we pull punches a little bit when it comes to, women are sinners too, by the way. They do sin occasionally.
There's an idea of mutual submission. That's all they talk about, in the sense that there's this, you're both submitting. But I really believe that mutual submission is the sense that a leader serves his people. But there's a different type of submission between both ways. The president's our public servant, but he's the head and leader of us, the representative.
It does say, somewhere in Genesis that women want to have power over the man in a relationship. Yeah. They'll fight for that control. So it's like, we shouldn't just say, it's controversial, but that's it's rooted a little bit in the nature here. And I can understand, partly why that is. Like, men are physically stronger in general, and that's an intimidating factor. But there's just a lot of stuff here. But I mean, this is kind of the things that I like. I think we need to, as a church, get into more. Maybe there's, other avenues that we'll get into it. But Jacob's yawning. He's so over this topic. He's like, I'm done. I am so done.
It's like a boomerang, You mentioned it at the beginning and it just comes right back to you at the end.
All right, Jacob, what do you want to move us on to?
I don't know. Actually, Mexico. I think we need to talk about Mexico.
Oh. Well, leaving men and women behind. Go ahead. Tell us about Mexico. What about Mexico? It's a great place to vacation in the summer, except not right now.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of bad stuff happening there. And this kind of ties in with the immigration thing we were talking about earlier, about, breaking the nation's laws by coming here illegally.
Yep.
And it ties in a very consequential way. But yeah, so there was a cartel leader. Don't know his name. Don't really care to know his name. He was killed. I believe it was a Mexican operation that was backed partially by the United States.
We just want to talk about love. You want to talk about all the deaths in the world.
Yeah, well, this is important because it, could have some ramifications.
I heard it was a prostitute who left him and then told the Americans the intel where he was going to be.
See, and that's just that's funny, actually. Men and their vices will lead them to their. Yeah. I mean, it's probably good that this guy was killed, honestly, because he was not a good person. But his vices got him killed in that instance.
Even more.
Yeah. So, regardless, this high up member of this cartel or leader, whatever he was killed, which caused members of the CJ&G cartel or cartel.
What was the name of that?
It's a Cartel Jalisco New Generation, which it's,
Impressive
It's
pronunciation.
Spanish or something. But
Too bad we don't
CJ,
have our old Spanish expert with us.
that's true.
Casemiro.
Yeah, we got to get him on here actually sometime. But yeah, so CJ&G decided to go out and wreak some havoc. Among other things, they went to an airport and kind of, it was really horrible. They did some horrible things. Basically, laid siege to some places, including an airport. That's where I saw some of the videos from that. Engaged a lot of Mexican National Guard members. A lot of them died. And the cartel is very well armed. I don't know how well trained they are. Some of them are better than others as far as training goes. But they're better armed than the Taliban ever was.
You think it's because of the Fast and Furious, not the movies?
That's one. The Fast and Furious is one of the contributing things, but then there's other aspects to it that you can't really chalk up to Fast and Furious, like rockets and things. They didn't get those bought in America and shipped over to Mexico. That just wasn't happening. But so there was this basically war or little battle going on. A lot of people died, and the cartel basically, last I heard, they made demands saying, give us the names of the people who killed our guy, or we're going to start going door to door to people's houses. And I don't know if they said kill them, but I think they kind of implied that they're going to just start killing people. So it is like all out collapse in Mexico from what I can tell. And I've heard of a couple people who are there that are kind of locked down and terrified. And Donald Trump, our president, seems to be toying with the idea of sending troops to Mexico, potentially. He's talked about it. And
what do you think about that, Barry? You like the idea of troops going to Mexico?
I like the idea of eradicating evil.
Me too. That sounds good. But can you do that everywhere? Do you think it's worth it to do it just south of our border?
Yeah, and that's where I would say that I'd be less inclined to do that, because you are inviting a lot of problems by doing that.
Would you rather do it in Iran or would you rather do it in Mexico?
I think if we're going to eradicate evil somewhere, all of our resources and all of our focus should be right next door.
Okay, so Mexico over Iran.
Of 100%, knowing that that's the most dangerous. And that's also eradicating evil nearby us will have an impact in our country. If you have a nice next door neighbor, there's more benefits that would happen.
I thought Jacob was an anti-interventionist, and I'm getting interventionist vibes.
This is less than an intervention.
No, this is not an intervention. This, in my mind, this meets the criteria of a just war, in my opinion.
I'm stirring the pot so hard right now. Look at me.
Just war. It's also our neighbor, where it can spill over to us.
Yeah. However, since you brought it up, war with Iran on behalf of someone else who has interests in a certain region, I don't think is a just war. I don't think we should be doing that.
But you do think the Mexico one is the cartel one, really?
Yeah, the cartels have been basically directly responsible for massive amounts of human suffering of both Mexicans and the big deal is American citizens
and children.
I think
children
the problem though is if
and American citizens, like the amount of people that have died as a result of their enterprise in this country and continue to die is unacceptable.
Yeah, but think about all the money they've made the FBI.
Yeah, I know. I just want to keep giving the FBI more money. That's a good idea.
And all the drug running we've done. I mean, I don't know, man.
But seriously though, this is a serious deal. I think we should do something. I think we should not allow the cartels to exist. I think we should. I don't know why we went to Venezuela. I don't think we should have done that. I think we should have directed all of that hate and rage towards Mexico and the cartels.
Specifically the cartels.
Well, yeah.
The drug runners.
Yeah. I mean, we went to Venezuela and their leader. I think we should have gone just, hop over the border.
I think we actually talked about that.
Yeah. And one of the main reasons why, aside from the fact that they are actively killing Americans daily, and terrorizing people and just kind of destroying our country. Like, I don't want to overplay it, but
the cartels, you mean?
The cartels are kind of just destroying our country.
Well, we've already declared them. Okay.
Yeah, we've declared them terrorist organizations. I don't know if CJ&G is on the list of terrorist organizations, but we've declared some of the cartels as terrorist organizations.
And once you do that, you're kind of saying like, we're going to take you out, basically. I mean, we just haven't followed through, I guess.
Yes, but the problem that a lot of people will bring up is that if we start putting boots on the ground in Mexico or start doing strikes in Mexico against cartels, we will kind of poke the bear and cause them to retaliate, which I don't know if the average American is ready for that or even understands what that means. Because what that means, as a result of our immigration policy, is we have a ton of people, undocumented people. Undocumented, yeah. Illegal.
Oh, wow.
No,
You used
I stress
undocumented.
I stress undocumented, meaning we do not know about them. Okay. They are here and we don't know anything about them.
He's gone soft, Barry. Jacob's gone soft.
I thought he was going
He's
well.
so ticked now.
I am.
I was a little surprised about that.
I just want to finish my flow of thought, please.
All right, get him back in flow state.
Goodness.
Get him back in flow state.
No, we got a lot of people here who we don't know who they are, and a lot of them probably work for the cartels. And it is entirely possible that if we end up going to war with the cartels, your family could be beheaded in a park in Central America and like the middle of America, the Midwest, right here in Kansas, or a mall could get shot up, or there could be a bomb going off.
Because there's so many people here from there, right?
Because there are cartel elements in every single major city in this country. And if they are under threat, they might act like a cornered animal and just say, you know what? We're going to push back and show them that they really don't want this war. So for us to engage in that war and to eradicate evil, there will be a cost. American lives will be lost, not just on the ground in Mexico, which there will be more, probably more than Afghanistan because the cartel is much, much more well-armed. But there will be consequences. And I, for one, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that is an acceptable risk. I think there's a point where you have to be willing to make sacrifice. Everybody, for the war effort, everybody has to be willing to make sacrifices in order to eradicate evil that is threatening our way of life and threatening our people.
And people will be much more willing to accept it when they see just how ridiculously evil these organizations are, and a lot of it has human trafficking elements as well. But
they traffic children. They disembowel and behead people and cut off their faces and do all sorts of really horrible, satanic, just evil things you can't even comprehend.
I think that's the cartels, the Epstein stuff. I think people have kind of forgotten. It's like the Shire, right? In America, we're living in the Shire. It's a really great place. And we're so happy. We just think everybody's like us. And we're all just Shirelings. And it's like, well, or hobbits or whatever. Well, actually, there really truly is evil in this world. And people kind of forget that. So it's like, oh, let's just have open borders. Let's do whatever we want to do. Let's, and you just don't realize when you invite millions of Muslims into your country who diametrically are opposed to your worldview, your Western way of life, who have been at war with Christendom basically since their founding. Like, we don't recognize, we're not really truly awake here when we're doing these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You cannot open your borders like that and just expect everything to be okay. Because there are some people who are just coming over here to seek a new, better life and provide for their families. Some people are coming over here with sex slaves or drugs or weapons or man pads. Do you know what those are, Kyle?
What's a man pad?
You know what a man pad is?
What the heck is a man pad?
No, a man pad is a man-portable air defense system. That's a anti-aircraft rocket launcher, missile launcher that you fire from your shoulder, like a Stinger missile.
Did they 3D print them?
How would they get that over here?
They get them from Europe or Africa or wherever. Those have been documented. We have found those being smuggled across the border. So there are anti-air missiles in this country. And I'm just going to tell you right now, airlines today are not set up for countermeasures. They will get shot down. So that's one of there are so many factors as to why this is a big deal. And there's a lot of people who maybe advocate that we just should not mess with the cartels for the sake of protecting our family and whatever. But I think in the long run, what we have to do to protect our families and protect our nation is to actually do something and destroy evil. We're a Christian nation. Christian nations should seek to destroy and eradicate evil.
Yeah, I definitely think we're tolerant of too much evil in our country and certainly on our borders. So, Barry, do you have any closing thoughts? We've covered the gambit. We've talked about RomCon. We've talked about the U.S. hockey team destroying Canada for the greater good of America. What else did we talk about? The Golden Key. We've talked about Glenn Beck. We've talked about
big beautiful key.
It's a big beautiful key.
First Timothy 2.
Mar-a-Lago, man, infiltrating there. We talked about the border with Mexico, cartels.
We talked about everything, man.
We talked about a lot today. What do you think? What do you think?
I think I'm talked out.
Yeah, he's ready. He's ready to go back home.
I'm just getting started.
He's getting yawning.
I'm missing this. I'm going to step out of the first half of the podcast, but the second half is going to go at least as
well. We're wrapping it up.
There's
we're
no
wrapping
second
it
half.
up.
We're done.
Jacob, closing thoughts?
Yeah, push back against evil. You should be proud to be an American. And we should also be seeking to make America a Christian country again. Maybe that's a radical idea, but
I agree with that. The country needs to be more Christian. We need to bring people in who are going to assimilate to our Christian Western values, or don't bring in at all, or ship out if they're here illegally. So I also do think I want to say, we are Christians. We recognize not everyone agrees with us on everything. We are doing our best to have a conversation and promote what we see as good values. And, we just hope that the church is not afraid to, debate and counter these issues. I think it's healthy that people talk through their beliefs. And that's kind of what we try to do here. Reform or die. Till next time, folks.